some people, if their dad, brother, mom, whoever, their idols or people they look up to do something, some people want to do what they do, some people want to do something different. So that's interesting to me that you didn't say want to be a breaker, or you didn't want to be an MC, or you didn't want to have a record label, whatever it was. And then at the same time, you also could have followed your brother's footsteps into the wrong side of the law. So you had these different things you were seeing. So now that you look back, why, placating your parents is one thing, but if your brother's having fun or whatever he's doing, people are drawn to that. Love's going to get you. KRS Boogie Down Productions. It's all these different things that we both know happen thousands of times a day. So what do you think it was about that was inherent in you that made you not want to try a different form of hip hop or commit crime or do the wrong thing, quote unquote?
Well, with regards to what made me decide I wanted a DJ, it's important for people to know that I did experiment with every element of hip hop. So I remember in the 6th grade, I met Psycho Les from the Beatnuts. And actually, Psycho Les is the guy that, or the friend, I should say, that convinced me to ask my brother to teach us how to DJ. I remember I told him, like, yo, one day, we were just hip hop heads, 12 years old, but loving listening to the radio, Red Alert, Chuck Chill Out, Marley Marl. And one day we were talking in homeroom and I was like, yeah, my brother's a DJ. He was like, what? He was like, your brother's a DJ? Dude, like, let's get him to teach us. Like, it didn't occur to me that I could ask my brother to teach me how to DJ until Les was like, dude, we're asking your brother to teach us. So the point that I'm trying to make is that although DJing is what I gravitated to most, we would be in homeroom writing pieces, in classes writing rhymes, like not even paying attention to the teacher, like literally writing rhymes in class. We used to beatbox. I remember there was this hallway near our lunchroom that we would pass, obviously, to get to the lunchroom. And in this hallway, there was this little nook, like a square nook where we had lockers. And it never failed. Every day, a group of us would stop in that nook and breakdance on our way to lunch. So there was a local church, St. Joan of Arc, where the church actually was kind enough to open up their basement. It was like this cool rec center. And the floor was like just slippery and shiny, like this wood floor, but like you could do the sickest backspins on this floor. And I remember we would go there and breakdance, So I experimented with every element of hip hop. As a kid back then, that's just what you did. I just knew DJing is what I was best at. So I stuck with that. What made me mimic my brother or take after my brother with regards to DJing, and what made me do the opposite with regards to his street ways, I feel like the best way I could answer that is I'm not a follower, and I don't cave to peer pressure at all. So, for example, that same church, this is crazy, but like just thinking about this, like I haven't had this conversation or even really spoke to anyone about this, at least in public, ever. But that same church that we used to breakdance at, I remember my older brother and the older brothers of the other kids that we were there with fucking like broke into like a room and like stole purses and like wallets for people from this church. And I remember like the following week that we would go there weekly, like on Fridays. And I remember the following week we all go, and the priest was like, "You guys can't come back because you guys like robbed our, the people that come to this church. You guys robbed them." And I had no idea that my brother did this shit. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I knew right from wrong. And I knew that although my brother had this, what's the word I'm looking for? Like this reputation. So like people feared him, and no one would ever mess with me because they knew who my brother was. That was a perk to like the way my brother was, you know what I mean? Like, don't fuck with Rob, like his older brother's John. That was like I wore the fact that my brother was my brother like a badge almost. You know what I mean? So I could go anywhere, be anywhere. No one would fuck with me because they knew who that's John's little brother. So leave that kid alone, kind of thing, right? So although I had that perk, so to speak, I also knew right from wrong. And I respected the idea of consequences. Like, damn, we can't break dance anymore at this church because my brother and these other kids took purses and wallets from this room. You know what I mean? Or, I'd be at home 12, 1, 2 in the morning, and my brother's not home, and my mom's crying, like worried about my brother. Where is your brother? And all that stuff. So I knew right from wrong, and I knew, all right, like I have to pick and choose what's good for me and what's not, and I've developed as an adult to be the same person. So, I'm not saying this because I expect a pat on the back, but like I've never smoked weed in my life ever. And like the majority of the girlfriends that I've had, the majority of the people that I've DJ'd with, my fellow bandmates from the X-ecutioners, rappers I've worked with, all experimented with drugs or smoked weed or still smoke weed. I don't fuck with any of that. I've never done a drug in my life. I've drank one Heineken bottle my entire life, and I was like 18, and I was like with a friend of my brother's, and he didn't want to drink alone, and I felt bad for him. So I drank one Heineken, right? But like, I don't drink. Anyone that knows me out there or has encountered me like at clubs, on tour, usually fans, because they're happy to meet you or whatever, they'll like pound you and you open your hand and there's like weed, I'll give it back kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, I guess having my brother as a model for the negative consequences of not doing the right thing or misbehaving or whatever the case is, that was enough for me to understand the route that I needed to take with regards to school and music, And so to this day, I've managed to live a squeaky clean lifestyle, you know what I mean? With regards to my body and with regards to the law too.
Well, you and me both, but it's funny because
Yeah.
you've had one more drink than I have. I've never done any drugs or drank or anything, and
Right on.
it's funny
That's rare. That's rare these days, man.
yeah, it's funny because when people that obviously know what I do, they're like, "Man, how could you be around all that and never?" I have my reasons too, but I've never had any
Right.
interest in it. But
one thing I will or do want to say as we start to kind of turn the page and maybe you ask me some other question or whatever, I want people to also know that my brother turned out great. Like, he's not the same guy that he was in his teenage years. And, I saw him today and it was dope seeing him. And, I love him. And I just don't want anyone to think that my brother's just like bad influence, because again, like if it wasn't for him, I would not be sitting in this chair talking to you from this room. Like My dad was my first model for what a DJ does, but my brother literally taught me. Whereas my dad didn't want to teach me how to DJ. He didn't want either myself or my brother to even touch his equipment because he thought we would break his gear. So like he would take his needles and hide them, unplug stuff. And my brother, being the mischievous teenage kid that he was, when my dad would take off for work and my mom would leave with him, my brother would like find where he stashed the needles, cook everything up, invite his friends over to our house, and they'd throw these like jams in my living room. So as mischievous as my brother was, I'm sort of glad that he was a rebel in that way too, because who knows, if he was a goody two shoes, maybe I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to touch my dad's turntables and DJ and learn, you know what I mean? So everything, it's all a part of God's master plan, and maybe I needed to have a brother that was like that in order to, from a distance, learn certain lessons, whether it was creative or life lessons.
Well, I think it's an important point too, because the reality is no one person is one thing. We're a collection of things. So
exactly,
if your brother robbed people, that doesn't mean the other 20 things you could have learned from him that were positive. Like, why not take that part from him? So it's
right.
That's why I was intrigued, because like, just for me, I've been around a wide range of people in my life too, at formative parts of my life, and seen things and not done a lot of stuff that my friends or people I knew or their friends did. So I often think of that stuff because I never drank, I never did drugs, I never did any of these things, and 99% of my friends did all of it, and some got incarcerated, some got, it makes me think, when I do reflect on it, why I did certain things, and I'm glad I did. And to your point with your brother, even if you do the wrong thing, it doesn't mean that your life is ruined. You just have to fix. I
No
look at
doubt.
one of the best examples before we move on is Malcolm X. I mean, look at the
Mm-hmm.
layers and the levels and the changes of his life throughout his whole life. He never stopped
Mm-hmm.
evolving and developing and changing, and what he believed, as convinced he believed one thing, later he believed something else because he thought he had better information. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think it's interesting to see why people take certain things from people and not others. So
Yeah.
that being said, that all ties into psychology, which is what you said you had studied, which then, of all the things, why was that what you wanted to study? Because that's not like a smooth, easy degree, relatively speaking. That's something you got to really, I would imagine, apply and work
Oh
hard.
yeah.
So
A
why?
lot of a lot of 30-page papers while I was majoring in psychology. And as much as I loved learning about it, I don't miss those days at all. But I do credit those days of writing the 30-page papers for the way I write now about DJing and the way I blog about the art form that I love so much. If it wasn't for college, speech class, child psychology class, all that stuff, I don't think that I'd be able to communicate and articulate myself and this art the way I do. So I'm glad I went to college, man. And as far as why I chose psychology, I went to Newtown High School in Elmhurst, Queens. And Newtown High School is a business high school. So when I graduated Newtown, I chose Baruch College because Baruch College at the time was one of the top 3 business colleges in New York City. So when I went to Baruch, I entered my freshman year thinking, when I graduate, I'm going to figure out a plan to own my own hotel chain. Like, I wanted to own hotels. That was my, plan, right? But I took my first intro to psych class freshman year, and I was just blown away. Excuse me. I was just like, yo, this class is dope, because I think I was always a cerebral kid. I just didn't realize it. And psychology introduced that side of myself to myself, you know? And, you know, I still have a lot of the textbooks that I bought back then. And I apply psychology in what I do with regards to being creative, how I interact with people, especially students, working in groups, group psychology. That's something that, like, I feel like this world that we live in right now needs more coaching in. You know, we interact a lot through social media, and these days people don't even know how to carry a conversation in person. Like, they're awkward about speaking. And so that's what made me major in psychology. It was just being introduced to my first psych class. So I took it and I was like, nah, I'm changing majors. Like, I still took business courses because it was a business college, but my major went from business to psychology.
In the beginning, hip-hop was ruled by the East Coast. Then the West Coast rose to prominence thanks to gangster rap.
Straight out of Compton, crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube.
Hip-hop changed the world. Gangster rap changed the narrative.
I'm representing for the gangsters all across the world.
And then changed the world again.
Cause I'll come and take your life away.
The history of gangster rap features unheard stories, unseen photos and documents, all with exclusive interviews from the founders and players who shaped gangster rap.
I think a real gangster rapper has to scare you a little bit.
The history of gangster rap, written by veteran rap journalist Soren Baker. In stores now.
Yo, what up? This is DJ Quick. Be sure to pick up my homeboy Soren Baker's book, The History of Gangster Rap, if you really want to know what we do.